That's fine. 3 minutes.
Yeah. Pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Sounded good, board.
Okay. Looks like I have a rabbit sticking out of my jacket.
Board, do we have a motion for the agenda?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we have an agenda. All right, the first thing on the agenda is action item 2.01. Dr. Hoden.
Yes, so we ask you for a reorganization of the board tonight. I need to be assigned as the deputy clerk, and we ask that you assign Josh Neighbors, that is currently the chief academic officer, as a designee in my absence.
All right, so board, you understand? So Dr. Hoden is suggesting that we make him the deputy clerk because Dr. Wells was the deputy clerk. And we would also, in that asking to have Josh Neighbors be the backup to Dr. Hoden.
And part of that is important because I still have to submit some reports in SSWS. I can't approve the
Your own
reports.
stuff.
My own stuff, so it
Right.
has to be someone different.
And there are going to be times that you're not going to be here,
Sure.
just as it was with Dr. Wells.
Right. So you'd have to approve A through C, ma'am. A through C. It's A, B, and C.
It's on the board up there.
Sorry. Thank you.
Second.
All right, so we have a motion, we have a second. Is there any discussion?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, ma'am.
So, my first neighbor, any building, being principal, correct? If I'm correct, he does not have that experience. How do you see him stepping in as your designee? I'm not certain I understand the hierarchy.
So he does have a superintendent's license, ma'am.
Right, but he has no, as far as I know, he has not been a principal. Is that correct?
I mean, I don't know that that has anything to do with him signing reports. He's still been a central office administrator for,
Maybe explain to Ms. Justice what the clerk means.
Maybe that would help.
well, I'm the clerk.
But what do you do? I think that's what she does.
Well, so the only thing that I do as the clerk is if Brittany's absent.
The superintendent's designee, not the clerk part, because you're questioning what Mr. Neighbors will be doing. Could you explain what it means to be a superintendent's designee?
Yes, so all it basically is, ma'am, is signing in my absence.
Okay.
Okay? And if something happened where I had an emergency, was not able to attend the board meeting, Mr. Neighbors would then stand in for me like I did for Dr. Wells.
Okay, thank you for explaining. I appreciate that.
Any other discussion, board? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Uh,
Any opposed, nay?
Okay, thank you.
Moving on, presentation, you have a presentation board.
Joe, am I good? Making sure I'm hot. I have the rabbit
Yeah,
sticking
you're
out of my, okay, all right. So, members of the board, senior staff, we have tonight the presentation of the 26-27 superintendent's proposed budget presentation. So before I start, I know that the board had given us a lot of things to consider as for this year's budget. These 5 things that I'm going to talk about here are just kind of more of the highlights, and we'll get into those a little bit more through the presentation, and then we'll also talk about them more in the budget hearing. But the first thing is to provide a 2% base compensation for all contracted staff. We're going to adjust the teacher salary scale in steps 1 through 20 to be more competitive with the local market. Provide additional compensation increases for select classified staff, increase funding programs for career technical education, and increase the number of staff in the operational budget to support the elementary educational programs. And again, I'll be going through those here as we go through. All right. First of all, for our student enrollment, I'd like to direct your attention to the center box. This is the Weldon Cooper information, which is basically our census information, which talks about what our census numbers are. And then you have the left and right. So let me explain the difference. The state says that we are projected to have 3,601.6 students. So yeah, I know it's a little weird to see 0.6, but that is what they project our enrollment to be. We believe that we could be as high as 3,662. We base the budget on 3601 so that if we do have an increase of students, that is more funding versus the 3662 and have to subtract funding. So that is why this budget is on the number of 3601.6. All right, ADM funding impact. So the current year, we have 3615.25. The state funding from that was $42,985,966. The proposed, again, for next year, the 3601.6, state funding is $42,851,632. That is a decrease of $134,334. That is for that 13.65 students. All right, summary revenue. Before I start on that, I need to talk to you about the VPI initiative, which is the Virginia Preschool Initiative. So this year we have 125 slots for VPI. The state says that next year they were only going to grant us 69. That is a difference of 56 less slots. What we have asked for next year, they have verbally assured us that we will receive the slots for next year to get us to the 125. However, I need to mention, this is a one-year only hold harmless where they're going to grant us those slots. We'll have to then reapply and ask for those slots again next year. So the big thing with this is this calculation, we had to calculate that by hand because of the calc tool. So we are hopeful that we'll get this information. This was coming out during the crossover, which was yesterday, and hopefully in the upcoming days we'll have this information. So again, this proposed budget currently reflects the revenue projections based on returning to the 125 VPI slots. All right, so the breakdown of our revenue. You will see the summary of revenue by the governor's proposed budget. That includes state revenue, state sales tax, federal revenue, federal grants, adult educational, child nutrition, and other local funds. You will also notice that the Board of Supervisors portion, which we're asking for a $2.1 million funding request, would then raise their portion to $18,502,089 to bring our total revenue to $67,820,076. Again, that number is reflected on a $2.1 million funding request from the Board of Supervisors. All right, a lot of information on this chart, and we can discuss this a little bit more when we get to our budget retreat. But I want you to see that this information goes back to 2021, and it shows what our local composite index was at that time, which I'm going to get into in just a second. It shows the required local match, and then the requested amounts and the approved local funds, and then the approved funding change. If you can notice that 21, 22, and 23, we did not receive any increases. In 24, we received $2.5 million. And then again in 25 and 26, we did not get any increases. And this year, we will be asking for the $2.1 million. The last column tells what the locality pays. Again, they have to pay 100%. So you'll notice back in 21, it was all the way up to 139. It fell to 120, then 117. When they gave us the 2.5 million, it increased to 127. And then over the last 2 years, because of no increase, it fell down from 117 to 111. So if we get the $2.1 million increase, it would then raise back up to the 118%. All right, a little bit more on the LCI, or the local composite index. This is what the locality's ability to pay is determined by the state. Okay, that's what that number is. It's based on the true value of real property, adjusted gross income, and the taxable retail sales. So from there, they determine the locality's ability to pay. Again, this year, okay, at 3.3015, the state share was $34,910,021. But next year, with the 0.3128, it is $34,345,263. That is a decrease of $564,000, $564,758. Okay, again, that is the ability to pay by the locality. And I'll kind of wrap these numbers up closer to the end so you kind of understand what those are. All right, so I want to focus attention to these for the increases. So the left box determines or shows you that a 2% base pay compensation increase for contracted staff, and that is based on the governor's proposed budget. Everything to the right of that box would be an additional increase. For example, in one of your things that you would ask for is for us to look at the pay bands. Okay, so this does incur an additional teacher pay scale adjustment for bands 1 through 20 to make us more competitive with the region. Okay, we've slid a little bit in there with that, so we really want to look at those pay bands 1 through 20 to make us more competitive. It also adds an additional pay scale adjustment, 5% for substitute teachers, 3% for office managers, and 3% for van drivers. So for the van drivers right now, they're on the same scale as the bus assistants. So because they're actually driving, we want to get them a little bit above that. And then a 1% increase for mechanics, grounds workers, maintenance workers, bus drivers, bus assistants, class 1 and 2 school-based secretaries. And please remember that 86% of our operational budget are our people. Summary of expenditures. All right, so please understand, this represents positions that we currently have that are in other areas. For example, SPED 611, Title II, and all in Virginia. These 12.3 positions would be moved out of those three areas and back onto the operational budget. So it's not additional positions. These are positions that we currently have, but they would move to the operational budget from those three funding lines. So on this slide, we know that you asked us to take a look at where we are, and we tried to be a little bit more protective of this. And so this deals with our efficiencies. So you asked us to look at where our efficiencies are. And so our decreases would be the Director of Professional Learning. That would be moved to Title II. That's 0.7. And then half a position that is a current vacancy. And then the reallocation of professional staff, 1, instructional assistants, 2, school-based non-instructional support, 1, and non-based support, 1.5. So that's a total deduction of 6.7 positions from the operational budget. We are asking for 9 additional positions. So this is the actual number of additional positions that we are asking for. CTE, a CTE teacher at Amherst County High School, 1 at Manelson Middle, and 1 at Amherst Middle School. So that is 3 positions. Instructional staff, in a discussion trying to increase in those 2 schools, we have 6 positions that would change an FTE. Now, I have talked to those 2 principals. They have given me kind of a plan for those 6 positions. I'm going to explain those positions to you more so when we get to our budget retreat. Additional operation expenditure changes. So please recall, last year we had to use money from our capital improvement plan. So we need to return CIP items to the operational budget, which will be buses, vehicles, and the painting project. Our summer school budget needs to move to the operational budget and also increase. We will have an increase in health insurance, which we don't have those figures yet, but we'll be working on those. And we have not had to increase that for a long time, but we will have some increase this year. New stipends for CTE and organized advisors, new stipend for Amherst Middle School drama coach, increased Southern Air maintenance budget per the contract, increase in student activity, increased utilities, which we all know, even at home, our utilities are going up. And then we have an increase in SRO costs. And then the technology budget for security software and equipment needs. So those are all things that we will need to increase. All right, I want to talk about this slide, a lot of information on here, and explain the operational budget change. So if you'll look at the state line for 25-26 this year and then next year, the difference in those 2 lines is $1,040,502, and that's an increase. Then the federal funds has an increase of $120,899 from last year to this year. The local funds has a decrease from this year to next year for $57,927. The Board of Supervisors, last year, they gave us $16,402,089, and this year we are asking for the $18,502,089, which is the $2.1 million. When you add those figures together, our budget actually increases by $3.203,474. So I want you to understand that that is the operational budget. It does not include food services and other things. That's why there are two different numbers that you'll notice that. Okay, so although we're asking for 2.1, the increase to our budget is actually 3.2 million. All right, so Amherst County Public Schools budget by the numbers. Instruction, okay, major areas that make up the operational budget, 73.31% is instruction, 9.5 is operations and maintenance, 7.6 pupil transportation, 5.9 administration and health, and 3.68 information technology. Again, this excludes grants and child nutrition. In summary, we are asking the Board of Supervisors for $2.1 million in additional funds. Recall, our current contribution is $16,402,089, and we are requesting $18,502,089. I want to spend a few minutes talking about this slide and really making folks understand where our $2.1 million ask comes from. Again, if you recall, last year, we had to pull $920,000 from our capital improvement plan to balance our budget. If our ADM actually does decrease by the 13 students, that is $134,334. The composite index change is a difference of $564,758. So honestly, of that $2.1 million, over 70% of that is really just to get us back on board. So although we're asking for the $2.1 million, the additional request of $489,008 would be